Poor people's disease is contagious. I cannot remember where I saw this, but I saw it while I was researching, looking for stories about Hurricane Katrina that the mainstream media wasn't really talking about. Maybe because some of the stories were like too dark, too horrific. But yeah, this is like what, the 20th year anniversary of the country's most devastating natural disaster. Natural disaster. That's the key word, right? Many believe that it had nothing to do with natural disaster. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about it when I come back. I remember when it first happened. I remember exactly where I was when we finally started hearing reports about what was going on. It had been flooding for a minute, and then Oprah Winfrey is the person who brought it out to the forefront, because prior to her, we were hear little things about the flood, the hurricane that was happening in New Orleans, but they weren't painting a picture. Okay. The way they were reporting it on mainstream media, you just thought it was just another flood, that happened in parts of the country that have hurricanes and floods. Oprah did a show. She did a special where she actually reported what was going on. And then that's when the country, Black Americans, became upset. You started seeing people on a roof, black people on top of the roof with flags, waving it in the air, with messages written on T-shirts and sheets asking for help. She showed that on her TV show. Let me see if I can find a little clip of it.
These girls had been traveling together for days. They fled a chaotic scene at the New Orleans Convention Center.
The water came up to 3 steps before the second floor. It was trapped upstairs. We went to the convention center. It was crazy though. Every half an hour they were saying somebody was missing or somebody got raped or somebody died.
And how old are you guys?
13. I'm 12.
So you ended up here. Now you feel safer and better. And what do you think about going back, or what do you think about what you've been through?
I don't want to go back. Not really.
Girls, you girls. That must be so hard. You all seem so strong. I don't know how you could be so strong. It's amazing. A blessing. These are the sweetest children. It seems remarkable to have gone through all of this. I mean, they've seen the worst side of life, worst side of people in crisis, and they're still so filled with hope and kindness and looking ahead. We should all learn from this kind of humanity.
This family barely survived swiftly rising floodwaters.
They didn't tell us that kind of water was going to come. My sister called me Sunday night. She said that 20 feet of water was going to come at us and we would drown. And my sister said if I let my children drown, she would never forgive me.
She is still shell-shocked from the...
It was horrible. It was devastating. Even those who were not in the state of Louisiana were emotionally traumatized by the images that we finally started seeing pouring onto our television, newspaper, magazines. When you be in a grocery store, you see these horrific images. But anywho, for the past 2 years, I have been wanting to do a story about Katrina. I can't say fascinated. I don't like using that word because it sounds like someone fascinated with animals in a zoo. But that is a story that always stuck with me. And I wanted to hear about things that wasn't covered in mainstream media. So it was kind of hard. And then guess what? I stumbled across videos about people sharing their survival stories on TikTok. Survival stories of the Hurricane Katrina. And I was wondering why every time I looked at YouTube or TikTok, I was seeing these stories about Hurricane Katrina, and I realized, oh my God, this is like the 20th anniversary this month. 2025 is when it happened. No, this month, 2005. So, I also, when I was looking for stories to talk about Hurricane Katrina, I stumbled across this story about New Orleans police and what they did to a black man who was shot. So, before I get into that article, did you know that some black New Orleans homeowners are still in a financial storm? I found an article that was written in 2013. So yeah, they're still going through it. Or at that time, they were still going through it. After Hurricane Katrina and Rita, more than 130,000 Louisiana residents received more than $9 billion in funds through Louisiana's Road Home Program, a federally supported fund intended to rebuild after the disaster. Due to systemic inequities, it has been far more difficult for black and brown residents to remain. Communities of color are more vulnerable to and less able to recover from natural disasters like hurricanes because of chronic underinvestment in their communities, racial segregation, redlining, and racial wealth inequality. These factors push a disproportionate number of black residents and renters into areas with crumbling infrastructures, poor quality homes, and greater exposure to environmental hazards and contaminants. It was also reported that a lot of black homeowners purchased property or homes in areas where the ground was below sea level. Of course, they didn't know this, and that's why their houses were always getting like flooded. Okay, so let me show you some clips that I found on TikTok. Very interesting. Those who want to hear more stories about people personal firsthand accounts of what happened during Hurricane Katrina, I advise you to go to TikTok and check it out. But here are a few clips that I discovered. Check it out.
My grandma, one of y'all, if y'all out there, you heard me, and y'all hear your son, just let me know y'all living, you heard me? Because I ain't seen y'all since Katrina hit, and I really missing y'all, you feel me? And I'm hurting. See this body right here? That woman been dead since Tuesday.
There's 6 bodies upstairs on the 3rd floor, and another lady laying on the floor by the ladies' bathroom dead. It's just terrible. It's an awful situation.
Bridge. There was a baby, hair freshly combed, that was in the water. And she was deceased, but I so wanted to get this baby out the water. And I told the guy that was driving the boat, I said, there's a baby right there. So let me get the baby and I'll take it to someone on the bridge and find out where parents is, you know. He said, that baby's gone, she's deceased. And I was like, anyway, just let me get her, you know, out the water and I'll take her to the bridge. And maybe, you know, the ambulance or something up there is waiting and they can take her and they can identify her. And he took a stick or some kind of board he had in the boat and he pushed the baby away. He was like, ma'am, we're worried about the living, not the dead right now. We have to get the living.
It's August 2005. I'm 20 years old. I'm still living at home with my parents, and I have my first big boy job at the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office as a sheriff deputy. My family does not play when it comes to hurricanes, tropical storms, so they pack up and they leave town. I want to be grown, decided that I was going to stay and help out at work during the storm. I said, it ain't gonna be that bad. Because in my lifetime, we hadn't really seen any bad hurricanes. So I said, it ain't gonna be that bad. I'm gonna stay and I'm gonna work. I'm gonna make this happen because I had just bought a new car and I needed to pay that damn car. So the storm is coming close, it's barreling towards the Gulf Coast. And I left. I headed downtown towards the sheriff's office, towards the jail to start my shift, which I didn't know at the time would be the shift from hell. At the time, I was working at central lockup and processing, which means that people that would come into jail, we would do the processing and getting them on to the next stage where they was going to be at. Get to work, it's nighttime, I'm on the night shift. And, all of us is there, most of everybody that works at the sheriff's office was there. People had brought George Foreman grills, meat to grill, snacks, food, we had music. We was going to camp out. We was going to camp out and get this money and go home the next day. But it didn't work out like that. We didn't have that many people come in to get processed, so most of the time we were just sitting around talking and chatting. The storm is getting closer and closer, and then all of a sudden, boom, the lights go out. Now, you might say, that don't mean nothing. It's a storm. The lights are, of course, going to go out. We are in, at the time, a state-of-the-art prison jail. We have generators. There's no reason that the lights should be going out. Well, they went out. We go back outside because one of my coworkers says, it's flooding outside. Now, if you grew up in this area, you know that it floods, so that's not nothing. We go outside, and it's indeed flooding. But this flooding was a little different from any flood that I've ever noticed. This flood actually was up to people's car doors, like the bottom of the car doors of the cars that was outside. And I remember stopping and thinking like, dang, that's a lot of water. And it was just so calm outside because the storm had done passed. It was calm. It wasn't raining anymore. And I was like, damn, that's so weird that this water is so high. And it just was like raining and windy for just a little while. Go back inside. An hour or two later, now the water is coming into the building where we are. It's only a one-story building where processing was at. And the water is starting to come in. So we are looking around like, what the hell is going on? When the fish started coming in is when the captain said, we can't stay in here anymore. We have to go. The previous sheriff had a catfish and tilapia farm that was located right across the street from Central Processing and Booking. So while it was flooding, the fishes from the fish farm were getting out and swimming all around, including inside Central Processing and Booking. While we were attempting to move to higher ground, we get a call from next door where we have the dorms or the cells, whatever you want to call them. And they're saying that there are some unruly inmates on the first floor and they needed help moving them up to the second level of the dorm. Now the water is waist deep. It's past midnight. It has to have been like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Past midnight. The water's up to my waist. We're going to this other portion of the jail to help get these inmates up to the second level. We get to the dorm that they're having issues with, and the inmates are just unruly. They're going off their fussing, rightfully so, because nobody really knows what's going on. Nobody knows that this is about to be a life-changing event. But the water is inside the prison. It's inside the cells. They have to move them all to the second level. We get them all to the second level. I remember when we first got to that door, they were attempting to put a mattress on the door and light the mattress afire in order to try to break the door down. But we got in and we got out and we put them up to the second level. I remember we get back to Central Processing and Booking, and my captain is like, grab all your belongings that you could grab. We're going to go across the street to this building. Let me show you. This building is another jail within the Orleans Parish jail system. This building was called CCC, Care, Custody, and Control. It housed a bunch of inmates on the upper floors, and the bottom floors was like administrative buildings, stuff like that. The sheriff had his office, stuff like that. But this building specifically had a veranda that ran around the bottom of the building. It was a floor up, and it ran around the bottom of the building. So you can see the veranda there. It goes around the whole building from the front to the back. There's a veranda. We leave out of Central Lockup and we crossing the street and the water is up to our chest. This water is rising rapidly. The sky is pitch black. It's dark outside. I'm holding my belongings above my head, going across this water to get to this building. We get here, we get to the veranda. I lay out my blanket, my pillow. A couple of my coworkers were pregnant. One of my coworkers, she was 8 months pregnant. I had a coworker who had just had twins. Her and her husband were there because people really didn't have nowhere to go, so they were just gonna come to work and make the money. The plan was for us to stay on this veranda for the night until help came the next day to come and get us. Help came. We ended up sleeping outside on this veranda for 5 days. And boy, it was a rough fight.
As I said, if you're interested in hearing more firsthand account Hurricane Katrina horror stories, go check out TikTok. You will not be disappointed, for real, Matt. I didn't want to put in extremely long clips. But I'm going to go back and check out some more stories myself when I'm done with this. But here's the article that I discovered a couple of years ago about this man named Henry Glover. So listen to the details of the case. I'm going to read from an article I found and also from the Justice Department. The Henry Glover killing and the New Orleans Police Department's efforts to end federal oversight. A little over a week after Hurricane Katrina struck in August 2005, charred human remains were found in the backseat of an incinerated white Chevy dumped on a dirt levee a block away from New Orleans Police Department station. After examining what he described as a body bag full of bones, the Orleans Parish coroner left the cause of death on an autopsy report blank, ruling out a homicide investigation. The bones were those of a 31-year-old black man named Henry Glover. For years, the Glover case lay dormant until reporter A.C. Thompson began investigating suspicious deaths in Katrina's aftermath. I want to play this clip right quick that I found as well. Check it out.
11 civilians were shot by New Orleans police officers.
Looting and other lawlessness will not be tolerated.
As rumors circulated about a declaration of martial law.
I've already called for martial law in the city of New Orleans.
I heard rumors that martial law was in place, and then I heard rumors that no, it was not.
I never declared martial law.
Did the police believe they could suspend their own rules?
Did he expect us to rank and file go through the streets? Shooting looters.
New evidence shows that an order was given authorizing officers to shoot looters.
One of the most troubled police departments in the history of North America. The NOPD reverts back to what the existing culture has always been.
That's the guy?
That's the one that beat me.
Tonight, the story of one of those killings.
What happened here wound up setting this chain of events in motion that has turned the New Orleans Police Department upside down.
And questions about a cover-up.
Bodies just don't burn up like that.
The way it was destroyed was telling a story. This is a premeditated homicide.
These are the pictures we all remember. The storm of a century. The flooding that submerged a city. The dispossessed. And the chaos.
Running right now? Yeah, it's running. Okay.
But some images from Katrina were never seen at all. This video was taken by this man, Istvan Belog, a former law enforcement officer who had come from out of state to assist after the storm.
I mean, can you believe this? This is the 9th of September. We were on a routine foot patrol. I'm looking down towards the riverbank just to see, if I see anything unusual. And I observed a white vehicle. We found this completely burnt out vehicle. I yelled up to my partner, I go, you won't believe what's in here. There's a dead body. There's looks like a femur right here. I observed the skull. And from here, there's a skull. I observed, which looked like a bullet wound. Looks like it was shot from the side. There's no question in my mind. This is a premeditated homicide. Absolutely amazing. This body is disintegrated. I mean, that was a hot fire.
So that clip I just played is a 2010 documentary, Frontline's 2010 documentary titled Law and Disorder. So let's get back to the article. For years, the Glover case lay dormant until reporter A.C. Thompson began investigating suspicious deaths in Katrina's aftermath. The investigation detailed how Glover was shot by a rookie officer on September the 2nd, 2005, and died in custody. His body was later set ablaze by another officer. 5 NOPD officers were charged in 2010 with 11 federal civil rights violations in connection with Glover's case, though 4 were eventually cleared of all charges. Yeah, I need to find out why they were cleared. The documentary examined the stories of Glover and at least 9 other civilians who were shot by NOPD officers in the chaotic days following Hurricane Katrina. It also traced the history of lawlessness within the NOPD, a police department that one former Justice Department official described at the time as the nation's most problematic. Following the revelations, then New Orleans Mayor Mitchell J. Landry, I believe, asked the U.S. Justice Department to investigate the police department. In 2012, the investigation resulted in the NOPD entering a consent decree, an agreement between the city and the police department and the DOJ that will put the NOPD under federal oversight and compel it to enact reforms. Now, they must have been really seriously bad. This is the article that I found on the Justice Department about what happened to, it goes more into details about what happened to Mr. Glover. 2 New Orleans police officers sentenced in post-Katrina shooting and burning of Henry Glover. The date is March the 31st, 2011, that this was posted. Washington former New Orleans Police Department Officer David Warren was sentenced today in connection with the post-Katrina shooting death of Henry Glover, and current NOPD officer Greg McRae was sentenced for the subsequent burning of Glover's remains and obstruction of justice. Former Officer Warren was sentenced to 25 years and 9 months in prison for his involvement in the September 2nd, 2005 shooting death of civilian Henry Glover. As part of the restitution order, Warren also had to pay $7,642.32 to Glover's family for funeral expenses. Warren was found guilty by a federal jury of a civil rights violation resulting in death for shooting Glover and for using a firearm to commit manslaughter. Current NOPD officer McRae was sentenced to 17 years and 3 months in prison, 3 years for supervised release, and restitution in the amount of $6,000 for his involvement in the burning of Mr. Glover's body. McRae was convicted of 2 civil rights violations, 1 count of obstructing justice and 1 count of using fire during the commission of a felony. One of the civil rights counts charged that McRae willfully used fire to destroy a civilian's property by burning and destroying a car. Another civilian rights count charged that he willfully deprived Glover's family members of their right to seek redress in the courts for his death. Evidence presented at the trial established that Warren, while stationed on a second-floor lookout, shot Glover, who was a floor below him, and running away. Glover's brother and a friend flagged down a passing motorist, Good Samaritan William Tanner, who put the wounded Glover in his car to try to get medical attention for him. However, when the group of men drove up to a makeshift police station seeking help for Glover, police officers surrounded the men at gunpoint, handcuffed them, and let Glover die in the backseat of the car. McRae then drove off with Tanner's car with Glover's body inside and burned both the body and the car with a traffic flare. Instead of upholding their oath to protect and serve the people of New Orleans in the days after Hurricane Katrina, those officers abused their power and violated the law and the public trust, said Thomas E. Perez, Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division. Today's sentence brings a measure of justice to the Glover family and to the entire city. Today's sentences send a powerful message that no one is above the law and that those who are sworn to protect our citizens are never under any circumstances relieved of their sacred responsibilities under our Constitution. We will continue to do everything in our power and use every law and weapon in our arsenal of justice to make certain that our police never abuse power they wield. Today is an important step forward for the courageous Glover family and the people of New Orleans, and an important move toward the city's healing and rebuilding, said Jet Letton, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Louisiana. David Welker, FBI special agent in charge of Louisiana, said today's sentence was a result of the continued diligence and commitment of the FBI to aggressively and fairly pursue civil rights violation with the goal of bringing to justice those who abuse the very citizens they are entrusted to protect and serve. This case was investigated by the New Orleans field office of the FBI and was prosecuted by trial attorney Jarrett Fishman of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division, Assistant U.S. Attorneys Tracy Knight and Michael Magner of the Eastern District of Louisiana. And you know what, guys? I could come and say the things I usually say, like, you know, what the law enforcement in this country signifies or what it was is an extension of. But you know what I want to say? I was just telling this to someone yesterday. We were having a fairly deep conversation. She revealed a lot of things to me and my sister about the state of the healthcare department system in this country, well, in California, who's behind it, why Black Americans are lacking help when they go to doctors and hospital, because it's systemic. And she was telling us who was behind it. I don't know if I want to do a video talking about it, but my point is, when she revealed those things to me, just like I'm reading this case, this case brought to mind what I said to her. I said, you have to believe that there's someone who wants to do their job, or not just want, but who is going to do their job in every sector in this country. There's somebody who has conviction in their heart. There's somebody who wants to do the right thing and is fair, regardless of color, regardless of ethnicity. They are fair. So you just have to believe that not everyone is corrupt. You know what I'm saying? The man who investigated and found what happened to Glover, he obviously had a conviction in his heart and a conscience to not just sweep everything under the rug. And then you have the reporter who, I'm sure he felt something wasn't right, or someone could have told him something in privacy and confidentiality that made him want to investigate and find out why so many people were unalived, not by drowning from the floods, other means. He discovered that people were like a lot of gunshots. They died from gunshots and just other things that look like homicide. My point is, there are some people in this world, in this country, that want to do the right thing, and they do the right thing, regardless of the consequences, regardless of what people think or how they feel. So that was just all. Like I said, this case brought what I said to her to mind, because she was kind of, I don't think she was coming off hopeless, but it was something that she said that made me say that to her, that I always believe that there is someone, even if it's just one person, even if it's a department that's filled with 500 people, even if it could just be one person who wants to do their job, and one person can change a lot. I did this video. I wanted to know more about the Katrina disaster and hear from people who never really shared their stories, or the mainstream media didn't bring their stories to the surface. And I finally got what I wanted, and I've been searching for 2-3 years. I'm delighted about that. And I didn't realize that, it happened, the devastation happened this month. And that's why so many videos were popping up on my recommendation, popping up continuously on TikTok. So yeah, that was terrible. That was very terrible. So you notice I was holding back my commentary, you know, when I show and express my disappointments or anger, because I wanted to just be just tell the information. I can do that, folks. I can. But you know, I wouldn't be me if I didn't speak the way I speak freely. You know, I can't let anybody stop me from expressing myself. I can't do it. It doesn't matter. For views, for money, for recognition, I'm not going to change who I am for anyone. So thank you guys. Those who checked out the whole video, I appreciate you. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. All that is appreciated, and thank you so much for helping this channel and showing your support in whatever way you can. To my regular listeners who really rock with me, and you've been rocking with me, and you show me that you support this channel, I love you with a love that is genuine. I'm not just saying, oh, I love you guys. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't say it. But thank you again. Over and out. 10-4 over and out. I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.